Hi, and welcome to this session on big data and advanced marketing. I'll be your host for this final session, Patrick Sweeney. You can find me online on social media at PC Sweeney if you like any follow-up questions answered before our meet up later on this month. But you can also reach out to me on email, patrick.sweeney@everylibrary.org, or put a time to talk to me on my calendar at calendly.com/PCSweeney, and we can have a discussion about anything you might have found interesting or that you want to talk through specifically for your libraries. This session, I think, is really interesting to me because it helps bring together everything that we've talked about in a way that I think is a little bit more manageable and a little bit easier to understand. It really helps us visualize the goals of our marketing, our strategies of marketing, what we're trying to accomplish in a way that's a little bit more meaningful than I think we're used to. Some of the things I'm going to talk about in this session are things that really changed the way that I thought about all of the activities that I was doing around marketing and libraries. This is pulled from a number of different conferences that we've been to around marketing, a lot of trainings and a lot of workshops that we've done around marketing, and things that we've seen where libraries are kind of falling behind in some of the marketing trends, if they're marketing at all. We're going to kind of talk about what marketing is, so I'm not going to dive deeply into that. We're going to really get into the nuts and bolts of making it happen throughout this session. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is how we need to be making decisions based on return on investment. We need to understand the cost per contact, what are our measurable KPIs, click-through rates, and any of those metrics. When we're looking at different marketing strategies, we know the cost of those strategies. You know, we have a very finite budget as libraries. Of course, if we had an infinite budget for libraries, we would tell everyone everything about libraries all the time. Unfortunately, we have a very finite set of resources, which means if I spend a penny putting an ad in front of somebody who doesn't care about what's in that ad, then I wasted that penny, right? We have to squeeze every last little bit out of our finite ad dollars that we possibly can in order to increase our reach, in order to maximize our budgets, in order to really influence the people who we're speaking to. Now, what that means is like the biggest example that I have is the difference between, say, running a direct mail campaign or running a Facebook ad campaign. Now, a direct mail ad campaign is about $1.50 per piece of mail per person in your community when all is said and done, staff time, printing costs, postage costs. It costs about $1.50 to send out each postcard. So if I was to reach 1,000 people, it would cost me about $1,500 to reach those 1,000 people. On the other hand, if I was reaching people on Facebook, if I spent $10 on Facebook, I can generally reach about 1,000 people. So it's a lot different in terms of the cost per view. But what we really want to find out is what the actions are. And what's nice about digital, and one of the best things about marketing on digital, is that you really can check out your metrics and see what's functioning and what's working and what's not, and get rid of things that aren't working. You can test audiences, you can A/B test, you can do a number of things that in direct mail or other marketing campaigns like billboards or coasters and bars, it's really hard to measure the success of those things. What does it cost to get one new person to come into the library? But through digital marketing, you can actually measure that and see your results. You can see likes, you can see comments, you can see reach, you can see click-through rates, donation rates, and a number of other things as a direct result of that marketing. And that's really what makes it so powerful. So when we're looking at how we want to spend our finite marketing dollars, really what we want to look at is how much does it cost to reach the most people with the best message in order to get them to take the actions that we want. Remember, we aren't marketing to raise awareness. We aren't marketing to tell people that libraries exist. We are marketing to get people to take an action. That is, come to the library, attend a program, check out some books, download some books, any of the things that we want people to do within our library, including volunteering, donating, or any other activity. So we are trying to figure out what works the best. And that means we're looking for return on investment. And in order to get that, the first thing we have to think about are our audience. And I've touched on this in other sessions, but this is the key to any of the work that we're doing. Again, libraries typically have 5 different audiences, and that is children's, teens, adults, seniors, and parents. And very seldom do we look at anything beyond that. For example, are they homeowners? For example, do they have children? Are they the head of the household? What is their income levels? Do they drive a blue Subaru? Do they read Outdoorsman magazine or whatever? There's a lot of different ways to segment our audiences. Segmenting those audiences really gives us an idea about what are the things that those people care about. What I see mostly in library ads and in library marketing, especially on digital, is that somebody will boost a post on the front page, and they'll boost it to everybody who's geographically close to the library, whether or not they have children, and it's an ad about coming to attend a children's story time, but they didn't create an audience of parents, right, of the right age parents, which you can do very easily in social media. We'll talk about that later. They didn't whittle that audience down further by targeting parents who care about reading, and then target that down further by age or income demographics of people who tend to come to library programs, right? And so there's a lot of different ways to weed out people who might not be likely to engage. Now, of course, we want to be all things for all people. I would love for everybody in the community to come to every program, but that's just not how it works. And if we want to use our very limited marketing dollars in a way that's effective and efficient, we need to not be scared to not tell people about the library who aren't going to care, right? And when I talk to librarians about the marketing that they're doing when they do an ad spend, what they're usually scared of is leaving people out and not telling everybody everything. But quite honestly, if you segment and target your audiences, you are going to increase your reach per dollar spent. So you are reaching more people with fewer dollars because you are in an audience of people who cares, who's sharing, who's liking, who's commenting, which increases organics, which increases your reach, which means you're reaching more people with less dollars ultimately. The other side of that is if you put ads about things that people don't care about in front of them, what they're going to do is they're going to click on that little button on Facebook that says, don't show me any more ads like this. And you're going to lose audience members who you're never going to be able to reach again on Facebook. And we see the same thing with our email marketing. Remember, something is spam in email only if it's a piece of email that you don't want to receive. If it's email from someone or something that you care about, that you're interested in, it's not spam, right? And eliminating those kinds of spammy messages, both in digital ads and email and that kind of targeting, increases our rates, our open rates, our click-through rates, increases our actions, and helps us reach more people in the end. That's why what we really need is to look at some of the detailed targeting of segmented audiences. And I'm going to talk through a little bit about how to find some segmented audiences, but most of this session is going to be around fundamentally, how do we get down to segmenting and targeting our audiences in new ways that they care about with the messages that they want to hear, remember, from our previous session on messaging, and how do we get them to take actions based on those messages? Remember, we also talked about calls to action in our previous sessions. But it all comes down to detailed targeting of segmented audience. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, there's a lot of places to get audiences. Really, getting an audience isn't that difficult. We have in our libraries A to Z databases and Reference USA, which are great tools that anybody in the public can use in our libraries, but that libraries almost never use themselves. I'm going to talk through how to do that. I'm going to give some examples, and I'm going to highlight exactly how to use A to Z databases and Reference USA to do that. Of course, Facebook and social media allows you to do a lot of detailed targeting. You can target parents with children of a certain age. You can target homeowners. You can target by geographic location. You can target by a million different things. Now, unfortunately, a lot of Facebook and social media tools are eliminating our ability to target to that level and a lot of the audiences that you can't target to. I'm going to show you how to get around that with A to Z databases or Reference USA. Of course, that clampdown comes in the wake of the 2016 election and the misinformation campaigns and all that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about that. There's also social hacking. Social hacking would be building an audience by going to the local donor wall of the local museum and writing down the names of all the donors and building an audience out of them. And we'll talk about how to do that. You can also do that using A to Z databases and Reference USA. And of course, we have the products from like Gale and Orange Boy. And finally, you can build them. You can build them through lead ad forms, which we'll talk about a little bit. You can build them through passing around a clipboard. It's story time, so you know you are getting people who are interested in story time. You can leave clipboards at your circulation desks or at your checkout counters. So these are the people who you know come in and use the library in the physical space. And being able to build your audiences like that tell you something different. You know, targeting people who use the library physical space, it might not be the best use of your resources to target them with ads about digital resources, right? Or if you find out everybody who's using your digital spaces, it might not be right to target them for ads about in-person services. The first thing we want to do is identify our audiences. And what I mean by identify our audience is who is going to care about what that ad is about. If it's a story about programming, or children's story time, or that kind of children's programming, then we're probably going to want to target people with children. If it's about home ownership, or if it's about purchasing homes, you're probably going to want to target people who are looking to buy a new home. Facebook allows you to target that kind of stuff. I'll show you how to target for all of those different things. But first, you have to identify an audience based upon what it is that you think they'll care about, based on their demographic traits that we can find in things like A to Z databases or Facebook or those kinds of things. Once you have them identified, remember, this is that ladder of engagement that we talked about before. You want to educate them about the service, about the program, about your needs, about their needs, about how those needs, interact or intersect, and how the library can help them satisfy their needs. So educating audience is the next step, of course, and then call to action. You want to ask people to do something. Remember, we did that problem, agitation, solution model of messaging. You can use that very easily on Facebook. Instead of saying, come to story time at 10 a.m., you can say, story time is critical, blah, blah, blah. The problem, agitation, solution, bring your kids to story time, right? We've already talked about that. But do not leave out that call to action. If you are posting anything, whether or not it's just educational nature, whether or not it's just informative, whether or not it's just like a library's transform, because you can't afford textbooks on a ramen noodle diet kind of poster, always include that call to action. Without that call to action, you are not going to see any returns on your ad dollars. And then what's the point of running that ad if you're not trying to get people to take an action? So that is calls to action. The other thing that's great about digital is that it's very easy to build communities. There was a great community on Tumblr, the Tumblarians, which was a community of librarians. We have ALA Think Tank. Many of you are probably in Facebook groups around things that you are interested in, Reddit groups, but you can build those same communities around your library. You can, whether it's a Facebook group, whether it's a Reddit group, or any of those other kinds of things, having that community around your library, having people engaged who feel like they're a part of something is a really effective part of marketing. And it's really what gets people to take those bigger actions, because they feel like they're supported, they feel like they're a part of something, they feel like what they're doing or what they're interested is important to other people, and that encourages their own behavior. So that building community is also important. Another guiding principle is understanding that it's all connected. Everything that we're doing on social media should connect to each other. This is part of building those funnels. So I'm going to show you a platform that we use that allows us to do this very, very easily. Remembering that what you do on Twitter is similar to what you do on Facebook, is similar to what you do on Instagram, is similar to what you do on LinkedIn. They should all be going towards the same goal. They should all have the same theme. They should have similar messaging and messages. They should be targeting similar audiences. And they should be drawing everybody back to the same place to take those same kinds of actions, right? Each audience, whatever that action is, of course. This will make a lot more sense when I show you some of the other digital strategies and how they interconnect. But just remember that you have an entire digital footprint. Please don't focus on, just Twitter or just Facebook or just Instagram, and forget about how those platforms integrate with your website, how they integrate with some of your other tools, your other digital tools, how they even integrate with your direct mail strategy. Things should be repeated across those different platforms. The other guiding principle is that good data is not anonymous. We have a lot of discussions in librarianship about the importance of anonymity. I do think that protecting patrons' privacy is important, but also people who want to opt in and want to get to know more and want to know more and want to learn more should have that ability to opt in, right? Remember also that the people who are in competition with libraries, the big businesses, they aren't anonymizing their data in any real meaningful way, and they're targeting your users to pull them away from your library to pay for their programs and services by telling them they're better. And if you aren't doing the same thing, you are running the risk of missing some excellent opportunities to engage and attract new audiences, new users. We can be as concerned about, the privacy word as we want. However, we won't be around for that privacy to matter to us later on anyway. Now, I'm not talking about stealing users' data. I'm not talking about a Cambridge Analytica kind of activity. What I'm talking about is users opting in. I'm talking about having good practices around data safety and good data practices, implementing GDPR-like practices within your platforms. One of the great things about GDPR was it just codified the things that are best practices around data anyway. You shouldn't keep data about people who don't care about your products, who don't care about your services, who aren't interested, people who don't want you to have their data. You should be open and honest about what you're doing with their data, who's seeing their data, who has access to it, and whether or not you're buying, selling, or trading it. Being open and transparent is the key to doing any of this work. So in no way am I suggesting that we're violating privacy. I'm talking about people opting in and people being informed about what's happening with their data. One of the other guiding principles is A/B testing. What's great about digital is that allows us to do a lot of A/B testing. We can target very small groups of people with very low ad spends to see how that group would respond to that message before we target a larger audience, right? And we see this a lot. There are ads that go out from major corporations where they're only spending, even out of their entire budget of digital marketing, which was probably, tens of millions of dollars. They spend $100 on an ad just to see how that ad works before they run a larger ad around it. So this A/B testing, this is about changing out the images, changing out any of the text, changing out the call to action, but one thing at a time, testing the one change at a time and seeing the results. Facebook lets you do it natively. A lot of email platforms like Constant Contact or MailChimp let you do it natively, and you can do it manually on Reddit, LinkedIn, any of those other digital platforms. But that's how you really figure out what your audiences care about most and allows you to build more sophisticated and better ads that lead to the results that you truly want. And this is all, of course, about creating funnels and paths. We create that audience. Remember that ladder of engagement that we talked about earlier, that original audience of data, or that original data-driven audience, things that we know that they care about, where we can engage them through email, Facebook, or direct mail, where we ask them some questions, where we get a two-way conversation. We build that data. Maybe they give us their email address, maybe they give us their name, their phone number, their zip code, fill in missing pieces of data. Maybe they tell us things that they care about because we sent them a survey. Once we know what they care about, we can do some messaging that helps them make a donation or volunteer or use our services or become advocates or whatever that final goal is. This funnel is so critically important to marketing. And really all you're trying to think of is, what do I want this person to do next? Okay, now once they do that, what do I want them to do after that? And after they do that, what do I want them to do, right? A lot of platforms automate this. The one we're going to talk about automates this process too. If somebody, for example, checks out a book or looks up a book on your catalog, or they place one on hold, what should happen after they get after they place a book on hold? Do they get taken to a donate page? Do they get taken back out for other suggestions? Do they say, hey, do you know you can get this back on digital? Sign up for our email list, follow us on Twitter. I mean, there's so many things that people can do after each one of those intersections of what's happening on any of your platforms, right? So after somebody places a book on hold, maybe you want them to follow you on Twitter. So the next page that pops up is follow us on Twitter, where you can then talk about them. You can segment that audience and tell them about books that they care about, et cetera, you know? So there's a lot of ways to think about this. Now, one of the big issues that I see, and that one of the biggest barriers that I see to libraries being really successful in this digital marketing arena is quite honestly our websites. Again, it's all very one directional. We give information out, we tell people things about the library, and then we just kind of hope they come back in, right? If we have a website, you know, because everybody in Delaware is Googling, where's my library? What can I get in my library? What's interesting about my library? You know, everybody's Googling that. So they're all going to easily find you, right? But that's not really the truth. You have to put those ads in front of their faces, whether they like it or not. You have to get them to interact in a way that's meaningful to both you and the people that you're serving, and have that kind of two-way conversation. And really, the foundational issue is that it's about the platforms that we're building our library's websites on. We have WordPress, we have Drupal, we have things like Wix, Squarespace, or I've seen HTML websites, but none of these are built around customer relationship management, right? Unless you integrate Salesforce-like platforms, which Salesforce, by the way, is a great platform. I think it's very overpowered for our needs, but it is a great platform that allows you to do a lot of the same kind of stuff. But WordPress is one directional. There's no backend data collection. There's really just no backend to it except building a website. It's not built around people interacting with your website. It's not built around understanding the people who are interacting with your library digitally. Same thing with Drupal and most of the other platforms I've seen libraries work with. I really haven't seen a library successfully or meaningfully use a customer relationship management tool. But what we have to remember, again, is that everybody who's competing with libraries in the market space is using customer relationship management tools. They know who their customers are. They know how to talk to them. They know how to retarget and re-engage them, which we're going to talk about too. That is why we are getting blown out of the market in a lot of ways. We are in competition with highly resourced organizations with a lot of data and a lot of tools. We have to understand what our goal is. Do we have the wrong key performance indicators for library websites? I think we do. I think our library websites are just informative, and that's fine. And I think what I'm seeing from a lot of libraries, including in Delaware, but everywhere else in the country, is really that, our key performance indicators is, did somebody click on our website? Did somebody click a button? Did somebody look at a page? How long did they look at that page? But I mean, really, who cares? What actions did they take after they looked at the website? That's really what I'm interested in, and figuring out ways to know what actions they took after they looked at your website. Did they attend a program? Did they attend a story time? How did they get to your website? Can we improve that funnel in some meaningful way? What pages are people looking at? But then what pages are people looking at after they look at those pages, and what's their path through? How do we get them to move to make donations, to volunteer? What actual concrete actions do people take with our websites? I think those are much better key performance indicators than traffic, which is what we normally look at. If we integrate civic CRMs or regular CRMs, Salesforce, I mean, there's dozens and dozens of them. But what we see is that there are two-way communications, right? People fill out a form, they wind up in a database. You can talk to them again about the things that they care about because they signed up for the thing that they care about. They gave you that kind of information. And so you are able to re-engage them in a way that's meaningful to make that sales pitch for that next piece. Again, library websites don't allow you to do that, but CRMs and civic CRMs let you do that. I'm going to take you through one that we use called Nation Builder. And in fact, this is one that you're going to see us using quite a bit in Delaware. We're building it out right now, this tool, not individually for libraries, but in the advocacy kind of space. Let me show you how we integrate this data and how we start building these paths to success. So in our website, in these platforms, it integrates everything. This is a completely integrated platform. It integrates your website, all of your communications, text messages, voice messages, email, scheduling social media, any way that you have to really engage with your public in that kind of way. You can record your direct mail send. So you can even understand if somebody came in from direct mail, and a number of other tools like that. It also integrates like your finances, so your donors, but also your volunteers and a bunch of other things, all under one dynamic website. And really, it looks kind of like this. So you have this web platform. You can bring in third-party data. It allows you to do surveys and polls, so you can get rid of SurveyMonkey. You can do donations, so you can get rid of your PayPal portal. It does volunteer, so you can get rid of your volunteer match. Your communication, so you can get rid of MailChimp and Constant Contact. It does GIS mapping, so you can see where people are in your community, which people live in which areas of your community through a number of filters. It also you do to events. It allows you to understand supporters. And this is what allows us to really engage with the public and understand them in a meaningful way, because we're seeing what they're doing in so many different areas of our work. So like on social media, we can see if they liked stuff that you posted on Facebook or retweeted you on Twitter, how engaged they are with your content so that you can retarget the people who are most engaged. I think this is really like the key to what's been missing from library marketing are these kinds of spaces. I like Nation Builder simply because it's very easy. If you can use WordPress, you can use Nation Builder. I've worked with Salesforce. I think it's super overpowered. I think it's overbuilt by engineers instead of users, and a number of other flaws. But this is a tool that's super easy to use. Ultimately, what happens is by understanding all of these things about an individual. So if somebody follows you on Twitter, they sign a petition, they take a poll, they make a donation, they sign up to volunteer, which events do they send? All of that data gets sent back to allow you to capture it and build one profile around an individual. Now, this is one of the guys who works at Nation Builder. This is the demo that he uses, so I'm not giving somebody's personal information away. But what we can see is that his name is Jason. He's a product manager. We have that little hand means he's interested in volunteering. We have his email address. We have his Twitter. We have his phone number. We have all of his different emails. We have his bio from his Twitter page. We know who last contacted them and about what. We know who recruited them, so who brought them on board and who engaged with them in a way that brought them to you. And all of these yellow things here, I think, are the most interesting bit, because what it automates is this tagging system. Now, tagging is great in MailChimp and Constant Contact, but you have to manually add a lot of those tags, right? However, the way Nation Builder works is if somebody signs a survey and the way they answer that survey automatically tags them with whatever you want them tagged. So if you run a survey that says, are you interested in attending children's story times? Everybody who checks yes is going to wind up with this tag that says, children's story times. Then what you can do is you can just send everybody who has that tag an email about children's story times. You can download everybody who's interested in story times, upload it into Facebook as a customer file, and target them with Facebook ads about children's story times. If you know they're interested in volunteering, of course, you can reach back out them to volunteering, but you can run ads specific to people who are interested in volunteering, people who've made donations. Remember that previous behavior is an indication of future behavior. So if somebody's never donated to you before, it's going to be hard to get them to make that first donation. But once somebody makes that first donation, it becomes exponentially easier to help them make the next one. And that's really the powerful part about understanding who these people are, what they care about. If you put a survey out that says, what things do you care about in your community? Do you care about public safety? Do you care about children's literacy? Do you care about education? Do you care about opportunity? Do you care about the economy? And you run that survey, now you have those different audiences to talk to. You can talk to people, well, are you interested in the economy? Well, here's how the library helps the economy. Here's programs about the library helping the economy. Here's small business support. Here's whatever, right? And that's really how you start understanding how to talk to people about the things that they care about, is, of course, finding out what it is that they care about. And tools like Nation Builder, Salesforce, and these kinds of CRMs are the things that allow you to do exactly that. I'm going to just show you just something else. This is just kind of an extra slide in this little bit. But if you're running a program in this part of Los Angeles, I know you're not in Los Angeles, but if you're running a program in this part of Los Angeles, the people who are likely to come are probably the people who are closest to that. You wouldn't want to send out an email to everybody in your community, especially if your community is very large or is an entire county or extends, so far that people drive, they're driving 20 miles to come do a story time. That's probably not going to happen, right? You can freehand cut a turf, you can name it, you can save it, and you can send emails to people who just live in that area. You can also use your filters on this. So you can find out everybody who attends story time and just map out where those people are. Are they the people closest to you? Maybe I'm completely wrong, and the people in your community are the people in your community attending story times are the people farthest from you. You could actually find that out with platforms like this by mapping them out on this tool in really, really easy ways. What this really allows you to do is look at the big picture, supporters, members, donors, volunteers, supporter opt-ins, a number of metrics that you can look at to see what's working, what's effective, what messages work, which ones don't, how many people in your community care about which issues, and how to talk to them, and the most effective way to talk to them. Again, this is really, when I started doing this work, when I found Nation Builder, I was blown away that libraries weren't using tools like this. And I was blown away that nobody had ever taught me that tools like this exist in any kind of meaningful way. And it reshaped the way I thought about all of the marketing that I was doing. So this is Nation Builder. Again, you're going to see us using Nation Builder out in your community to help build these data sets. These data sets aren't closed. They're very open. If you want to talk to us about, who in your community is interested in donating, interested in volunteering, our goal is to get people to donate. Our goal is to get people to show support for volunteers so that we can tell you who those people are, so that then you can use that data, right? That's a big part of our project with Delaware. So that's the website. Let's go into Facebook and let's just go through some basics of Facebook. Of course, there's billions of users on Facebook. Facebook is both good and terrible. I personally hate Facebook, but I use it every day. I think that's the feeling that most people have around it. It's so intersected with our lives at this point. Not sure exactly how to get out of it. Of course, I do have my own moral and ethical issues with it, but I can't really ignore it on those bases simply because of the size, scope, and reach and necessity of using it. So let's talk about Facebook. Again, Facebook is really great because it's so inexpensive to reach so many people in your community, and there's such good data on the back end that anybody can run an ad targeting anybody. That's both the power of Facebook and the terror of Facebook. Our goals on Facebook, of course, are to get people to take action. It's nice to have a million likes on Facebook. I'll tell you why that's important in just a second too. Don't think I think that part's not important, but that's not really our metric. Our real metric is who takes action based on our Facebook posts, right? If people aren't taking action based on our Facebook posts, it's not a good Facebook post. I would like for your libraries, of course, to have, tens of thousands of likes, even in those small communities, because the more people you can reach with your message, whether or not they live in your community or out, the more people you can ask for donations, the most people you can get to take action, the more people you can get to support you or fight for you in a crisis. Looking at the goal of Facebook, it's really to reach people who care about what you're talking about in a real and meaningful way, in order to engage them that in a way that drives them to action, right? To take some kind of larger action. Now, what most people do are these standard ads. You click on this, click boost post. You can target whoever you want to target off your front page, but that is called, but that is just a standard ad. What I want to get into is some of the dark ads. A lot of you have probably clicked on this boost post, created an audience, ran an ad off your front page. That's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with only doing that if that's all you're interested in doing. But there's a lot more that you can do. In Facebook Business Manager, now this is the old format. It doesn't look exactly like this anymore. But every time I had to do this presentation, I had to go through and change the images, and I just kind of got tired of it because Facebook does change where buttons are almost on a weekly basis. So it does look different now, but all the tools are still there. All the tools are the same. We have a bunch of different things that we can use in here, and I'm going to kind of go through it. But if your Facebook page isn't set up with a business manager account, you don't have access to these tools. So one of the first things I want you guys to do is go to business.facebook.com and set up your page with a business account so that you can have access to Facebook Pixels, audience engagement, ads manager, our audiences and audience insights. Creative Hub is great if you want to do some really sophisticated ads. I personally think it's very overpowered for our needs, but these are still great tools to have. Now, what's also great about running ads on Facebook is that it goes across their ad network. So if you run an ad on Facebook, it doesn't just run on Facebook, it runs across their entire ad network, which is websites, all over the internet. If you don't want your ads to run on any kinds of websites or any specific websites, you can actually block them on your Facebook account. So don't worry about that. But what is great is it shows people ads across the internet, just running something from Facebook. Now, really, we're talking about understanding audiences, how we can find those audiences, how we can target those audiences, and how we can build them. This is the most important part, where we get audiences and where we can find them. Again, we have a lot of those sources, A to Z databases, which I'm going to talk about in just one second, how to use it. But Facebook has Audience Insights. And Audience Insights is a great tool because you can see what people in your community care about, what they believe in, what they like, what pages the people in your community like. So maybe that gives you an indication of the things that they care about. If everybody in your community is really excited about a very specific individual, a comedian or an actor or somebody or an author, you can find that out. And that would be a good person to invite to come to your library for programming. So a lot of these insights can actually inform the programs and services that you're offering in the library, because it's a great source of data about what people care about in your community, what things they might be interested in attending. So don't be afraid to look this up. You can build a lot of really sophisticated audiences in here based on their age, where they live, what they're connected to, pages they're connected to, whether or not they're moving, they're interested in moving, they just moved, whether or not their birthday is coming up, a lot of different things like that. However, a lot of this is being taken away in Facebook. The really interesting detailed targeting, I think, is being taken away in Facebook, which good or bad, but I'm going to show you a way around that. If you go into A to Z databases, you click through, or Reference USA, they both look very similar, and click through to look at people in your community, you can actually set up a bunch of really interesting filters. Like you can just search for people in your state, in your city, that geography. You can search for them by name. That's not really going to do much for your audiences, but by their phone number, but also whether or not that their age or their gender, or whether or not they're head of household, things like their household information, income, marital status, net worth. If you really want to target wealthy people about messages about the library because you want to build a strong network of interested people among the wealthy in your community, because as we all know, wealthy people have political power and influence. Or if you're going to set up a capital campaign, before you start running your capital campaign, you might target wealthy people with Facebook ads, educating them about how the library is important in the community, what it does to the community. So when you go and you ask them for money later, they think, oh yeah, because the library does all those great things that I've heard for the last 2 years. The interest, hobbies, and lifestyles, I think, though, is the most interesting part of this. This is what this looks like. So when you blow this up, you can target people. If you're doing a program around food, you can build an audience of everybody who's interested in cooking, people who are donors, people who are interested in reading, people's family or religion or politics. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can target people for that aren't really available on Facebook anymore. What I think is most interesting is the magazines under reading, because a lot of us have magazines for download. Then people don't need to have those subscriptions anymore. But this tells you everybody in your community who subscribes to magazines, you can target them with an ad that says, have you tried using whatever app you guys use for your magazine downloads, right? and just run ads to people who actually read magazines. If you're targeting everybody in your community about that magazine download platform that you have, you're going to waste a ton of money putting ads in front of people who don't read magazines and will never read magazines. This solves that problem for you, right? In a lot of different ways that I'm not going to go into every example, but there's tons of examples that you can use to pull from here. Now, what happens when you click that search button is you get this list of people. So you get their name, their first name, their last name, their address, their city, their state, their zip code, their phone number. And what's interesting is that this is all you need in order to go over to Facebook in the customer audiences. If you click that customer file, what you can do after exporting that list from A to Z database, it exports into CSV. You can upload it as a customer file into Facebook, and you can, and Facebook, which is name, address, or name, zip code, and phone number, it will target the individual's Facebook profile. It doesn't need any digital information about those individuals, but it has something like a 90% match rate. So you can really target those people on Facebook just by getting their name, their address, and their phone number, which I think is really, really powerful and allows you to do a lot of this kind of work. Now, of course, things like website traffic, if you do Facebook pixels, what happens if you put a Facebook pixel on your website is that people who go to your website, you can retarget them. You can have pixels all over your library's website. You can track what actions they take on your website, so that people who are clicking on, children's program pages or pages about children's programming on your website, you can target them with ads about children's programming because that's what they care about, because you built that pixel around it. And a pixel is just a small piece of code that you just embed on various pages on your website. So it allows Facebook to have that communication with your website. Now, Facebook blueprints. So I'm not going to dive into everything that Facebook can do because there's such a huge amount that Facebook can do. But I do want to point you to Facebook Blueprints, which is a great tool. It's a training program that will teach you the most up-to-date Facebook strategies, tactics, tools, everything that you need. It's a free program. It does take a while to get through, but it's very, very interesting. So that's Facebook in a real brief nutshell. Now remember, what you can do if you have a CRM is that anybody who interacts with your Facebook page, if it's connected to your CRM, will track it on their profiles, so that you can make a list of everybody who interacts with you on Facebook. You can make a list of everybody who interacts with you on Twitter. This is looking at that whole scope, understanding your entire digital profile. You can retarget people because they interacted with your Facebook. If they interact with you on Facebook, they might be more likely to take this action or that action. And that two-way communication is what makes Facebook put together with a civic CRM like Nation Builder or a commercial CRM like Salesforce really, really powerful. Now, the big two things I'm going to talk about was Facebook, and then the other thing to use on the internet is email. Now, of course, there's tons of different platforms. I'll talk about those briefly, but really the two things that you need to run good digital marketing is Facebook and email. If you just use those two things, and you use them well in the way that we're talking about here, you're going to be above and beyond most other organizations in the country, except like the Coca-Cola, Nike, those kinds of things. Remember that email is the key to the internet. If what you do with your social media, if you think about it, at your social media and your website, if you make it your goal to get as many email addresses as possible, people to opt in who care about what it is that you're talking to them about, and then segment those emails, you are going to have a really powerful email program. Archimedes' famous quote here, if you give me a large enough email list and a platform to send them from, I shall move the world. When we look at advocacy organizations, they're building huge email lists so that they can target people instantaneously when there's a crisis around the issues that they care about. When we look at marketing, they want to target you around the products and services that you care about. I get a ton of gardening emails because they know I care about gardening. I love them. I don't think they're spam. I love my gardening emails. It's my favorite thing to hit my email box. But if you look at major donor drives, it's almost entirely through email. Getting emails from people is a huge aspect of your marketing cycle. It should be a huge aspect. It's not your end goal. Remember, once you have their email, you're going to want them to do the next thing, but it's a great opportunity. The other thing to think about with email is that it's the one platform on the internet that allows you to talk between various companies. So if I have a Yahoo email address and a Google email address, they can talk to each other. I can't talk to people on Facebook from Twitter, Twitter to Facebook, even Instagram to Facebook yet, and they're the same company. The other thing to remember too is that email moves with people. If you lose them on Facebook, you can ask them to follow you on Twitter. You can re-engage them in a lot more meaningful ways. Is that Facebook has all of the targeting native to it, all those digital tools that we talked about how to target people. Email does not. You have to build, in order to make email be effective, you have to build data around those profiles through the tagging mechanism, through third-party data sources, through whatever platform you're using, to really understand how to segment those audiences. And that's why, I don't ever recommend buying email lists. Buying email lists is a waste of money. Please don't do it. This is just like a quick note, because you don't know what it is that those people truly care about. They've never heard from you before. The open rate on a bought email, on a purchased email list is, point something percent. It's very, very low, and it's almost never worth it. So please don't buy email lists. Build your email lists through opt-ins, through getting people to sign up, through directly asking people, through all those opportunities of contact and engagement. And when you upload those emails into your whatever email platform, remember to tag them with where they came from, what they care about, so that you can then re-engage them. Now, what we often get asked is, how do you write for email? Writing for email is just good writing, but it's short, it's succinct, it's clear and concise. Problem, agitation, solution is a great model of messaging. At 2793 in the introduction can help you focus your email. Bullet points, highlighted parts, help them move their eye through your email. No big blocks of text. People tend to skip over large blocks of text. Be as short and clear and concise as you possibly can, the 5 C's of messaging that we talked about before. Yeah, my other key point here is please stop the newsletters. If you have good data, you don't need to do a newsletter that tells everybody everything about all the wonderful things that the library is doing or will do or can be or whatever. Target your emails down to smaller segments of audiences where you pull out everything from your newsletter and you send one email to the people who care about the few things, instead of giving everybody everything about your library. I promise that it will increase your open rates, it'll increase your engagement, it'll increase your actions, and it'll really drastically slow your block rates, your opt-out rates. It is really important that you're only telling people things about the library that are the things that they care about. That's why this data is important. With sophisticated email platforms, it automates the process, like we showed with Nation Builder. You can manually do it in Constant Contact and MailChimp, those kinds of platforms too. You should be sending 1 to 3 emails a week. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I am suggesting is that these people get one email, these people get a different email, these people get a different email. Those are your 3 emails for the week. Everybody got an email, but it was just about the things that they cared about, not about everything in the entire world that the library is doing. That really just comes down to segmenting your lists and targeting your audiences. I can't emphasize that enough. In these emails, please only make one ask. The fewer asks that you make of people, the more likely they are to take that action. Ask people to come to story time, ask people to attend a program, check out magazines on your platform, but that should be what that email is about. It shouldn't be about everything that the library is doing all the time, right? That one ask drives people to take more actions more often, and that is really the key to spending your marketing dollars wisely and getting that higher level of return on investment. Now, I skipped over a lot of other platforms. I'm not going to dive too deeply into them because ultimately the theory is the same. Target people based on what they care about, talk to them about the things that they care about, and make one ask and a call to action for those people. The same thing works on Instagram, Reddit, LinkedIn, and Twitter. The thing I will say about these different platforms is that they're really good for targeting different people based on different things. You know, Facebook, everybody's on it. So everybody's on it. Smart people, dumb people, good people, bad people, you know, you're going to get great comments. You're going to get terrible comments. There's a lot more organics on Facebook, and you're going to reach a lot more people who you might not have wanted to reach with your messaging on Facebook just because of the way the platform works. Instagram's a little bit different. You can do a lot better targeting on it. It's not quite as organic as Facebook with the shares and that kind of thing. Reddit is great. We run simply because you can target different communities on Reddit. If you haven't run a Reddit ad, I really enjoy running Reddit ads. I think it's my favorite place to advertise on, even though it's not really at all the most effective. Every library works with a organization called Humble Bundle, and Humble Bundle does, they bundle up books from various publishers or software or other products like that. And they allow people to purchase them as a bundle at a discounted rate. And part of that money goes to benefit whatever organization they've set up to do it. So every library is sometimes a beneficiary. You know, Sierra Club sometimes is, a children's hospital sometimes is. But what they do, one of the bundles that they do with us is called Warhammer. And I'm not a big gamer, a tabletop gamer, but Warhammer is a big tabletop game. The Warhammer community is huge. I'm in no way a part of it. And so I can't really just target people who like Warhammer just on Facebook, because that's not really where they're engaging. The Warhammer communities on Reddit are huge, and I can target people who are in Warhammer communities on Reddit and get a lot better click-through rates. Now, of course, that doesn't work for everything on Reddit, but you know, those more obscure kind of niche markets really are effective. LinkedIn is great for targeting professionals. You know, if you want everybody who works in banking to find out about, you know, the economy of the library, you can do that. If you want to target journalists in your community and just put ads in front of journalists in the media, you can target everybody in your community who's a journalist or works in the media. We use it to target librarians. People aren't just like perusing LinkedIn in the same way that they're doing Facebook, but they are generally doing it around work and the things that they're interested in professionally. So that's something to think about with those audiences. I don't typically advertise on Twitter only because it's always cost so much to get an action. You know, they tell us how a cost per click rate is, and it's usually, you know, a couple of bucks to get somebody to click on something on Twitter. I am not an expert at all on using Twitter ads. I would say that I'm mildly okay at it, but you can target on Twitter based on who those people follow, which is really interesting. On Facebook, you can't target people based on you know, which organizations they follow, but you can do that on Twitter. So that's why it's a little bit different and powerful in that way. So let's just review real quick. Now, remember that all paths, whatever you're doing, goes back to your website where you can do that data collection. You can have that two-way communication. And always remember to think about what people should do next. You should have a funnel. People do this, and then they do this. And then after they do that, what do they do next? And you should think through that through your marketing cycle so that you get them to do the things that you need them to do in order to be successful. So if you have any questions, again, this is Big Data and Advanced Marketing. Thank you so much for your time. You can find me online as PC Sweeney. My Twitter account was hacked for a long time. I just found out because I don't log in to my personal Twitter account that often. But you can also email me at patrick.sweeney@everylibrary.org or put something on my calendar at calendly.com/PC Sweeney. Thanks so much, team, and I look forward to talking to you in a couple of weeks.